All right, I have 5 o'clock at this time. I'd like to welcome everyone to our meeting. Right now, we have reconvened a meeting from yesterday. I'm glad everybody could get on. We have 163 attendees and 10 panelists. And at this time, if Betty, could you read our emergency provision for the declaration at this time?
Yes, sir. On March 31st, 2020, the Middlesex Board of Supervisors ratified a declaration of emergency issued by the county's Director of Emergency Management and adopted emergency procedures to ensure continuity of county government. A copy of this ordinance can be found on the county's website under Board of Supervisors Ordinances, number 81. These procedures include the ability for the Board of Supervisors and other county public entities to conduct electronic meetings. Information on how to access these meetings by video and telephone will be posted on the county website. The provisions of the emergency ordinance and electronic meetings is in effect for a period of 60 days unless amended, rescinded, or readopted by the Board of Supervisors. An audio recording is being made of the meeting, which will be linked from the county's website. Notice of the meetings along with access information has been posted on the county's website and at the front of the historic courthouse. An electronic meeting link was also sent to those persons that have asked to be part of the board's agenda list. As each person joins the meeting, the public audio will be muted to avoid background noise, and the board and staff audio will be open. If a meeting calls for public comment, the chairman will announce that the meeting is open for comments and public lines will be unmuted. Those with an audio connection should use *9, which will notify the moderator that you wish to comment. To unmute your phone, you should use *6. Those with video capability are to use the raise hand feature to be recognized by the chair. Each person will be given 3 minutes to speak, and each speaker must identify themselves when speaking. All votes will be by roll call and recorded in the minutes. Board members who leave the meeting or arrive must verbally note their attendance. If all board members are not joined by video, a roll call will be made every 2 hours to confirm a quorum.
All right, board members, are there any questions? If not, the essential business of the board is being done. The purpose of this meeting is to receive the update, a recording from Dr. Williams, the Three River Health District, to the board consideration of adoption of either a resolution or ordinance for implementing emergency regulation to prevent the spread of a contagious disease, COVID-19, in the Middlesex County during the pandemic of this coronavirus. At this time, can you establish a quorum for us, Betty?
Yes. Mr. Coons?
Present.
Mr. Mansfield?
Present.
Mr. Williams?
Present.
Mr. Kimbrough? Mr. Kimbrough?
Present.
And Mr. Jesse?
Present.
All 5 board members are present.
Okay, now we have established a quorum. At this time, we're going to call this meeting to order. The first thing, Matt, I guess you would have that recording of Dr. Richard Williams, Director of the Three River Health Department.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we're going to endeavor to replay his update for the board from last evening because it became apparent that we were up against our population cap for our meeting, and we had to expand that cap to allow for those interested to witness and participate and perhaps make comment to join in. So I think, bear with us, we're going to try this out. I think Betty is going to try to share her screen and play that YouTube portion of that last night's meeting where Mr. Williams provided his update. Thank you, Betty.
Good evening, sir. Thank you very much. It's Rich Williams, Three River Health District Director. I want to give you a high-level, brief update on the virus tonight, with particular attention to what it's doing in our area and how we can protect ourselves from this virus. Nationally and internationally, the COVID-19 case numbers continue to rise, but as you've heard so often in the news and elsewhere, the case numbers have leveled off. a daily increase in case numbers, so the curve is flattened. So the social distancing that we're accomplishing nationwide and worldwide is so far working pretty well. There's still lots of disease out there, and still lots of increases. Virginia, 2,500 plus cases, new cases a day we're seeing. In our area, we are seeing an uptick in community spread, increasing numbers across our district. We are protected to some extent by the fact that we are rural communities, but that protection is in some of our communities is being defeated. You can see the patterns that this virus actually takes if you look at the data from Three Rivers Health District. So in Middlesex, you guys, at this point, we only have 4 positive tested cases. That by no means reflects the amount of disease out there. One of the features of this virus is that a lot of people that have it have minimal symptoms or no symptoms at all. Estimates of asymptomatic spread of this or carriers of this virus range as high as 50, maybe higher percent of all people that have it have absolutely no symptoms, and a good deal more have minimal symptoms. So for every person who's sick with this disease, there are others that they have no way to know they have it, and neither does anybody else. So anyway, in Middlesex, we have 4 cases, but you can see from the rest of our jurisdictions that is kind of a false sense of security. In Richmond County, we have 143 cases. That is due to a large number of cases in 2 aggregate and congregate care facilities, one correctional facility and a nursing home. And that clearly demonstrates how rapidly this virus can spread if it's in proximity, person to person. The virus spreads primarily by droplets from the respiratory tract that elaborate into the air when we breathe or cough or talk or sneeze or anything else. And the viruses remain there for a while and can be inhaled and encountered by other people in the environment. So let me tell you a little bit about what we've done with these congregate care facilities. They are highly vulnerable areas, so as soon as we see evidence of a potential outbreak, we have been able in the past few weeks to go and test virtually everybody in the facility. So by the time we have a couple of cases, we do one round of testing. Of course, if you test today, you don't get the results of the test until a couple of days later. That's the limitation of the nasopharyngeal swab test. But by the time we do the first round of testing, we'll see 60 to 70% of the total population of the facility already has the disease. And you test again a couple of days later, and it's up to 80, 85% of the people in the facility have the disease. So this virus, given the right circumstances, can spread incredibly fast. And those facilities in Richmond County and facilities like that across the state have been, by definition, seeded from the community. So just a few cases that you know about in the community and all the ones that you don't know about that we know are there are enough to penetrate into these long-term, very highly vulnerable facilities and cause lots of cases. And those convert to hospitalizations and really bad outcomes. So a number of 4 COVID tested positive patients in people in Middlesex is not reflective of the amount of disease that's out there. And that kind of gives us a false sense of security that is very false, okay? Our numbers in Virginia, day by day, have been rising a little bit. A lot of that is because we've been doing a lot of congregate care facility sort of testing. But in talking to my epidemiologist, Philip Carr, and looking at our data, we believe our community numbers are going up as well. So we're not out of the woods with this virus by any means. From a hospitalization perspective, we're still doing very good across the state. And so the metrics are trending toward at least trying to satisfy some of the conditions that have been set for reopening and for business to resume, which it must do. The virus itself is a very, as we said already, with asymptomatic spread, it's a very insidious virus. It also does things that no other pathogen that any of us have ever seen does. It causes a huge range of symptoms, from no symptoms at all to fulminant bilateral pneumonia and death. It can attack many systems in the body. And immunologically, it also does some very challenging things in a certain subset of people. There is encouraging information from the Department of Homeland Security that higher the type of light that we see in sunlight in summer and the conditions, temperature and humidity in summer, the thing has a shorter half-life, so it's harder for it to survive in the environment in those conditions. So we may see a little bit of help with that, with decreased transmission over the summer, which would be great because it would give us a chance to recover. My apologies. Still no treatments for this thing, and vaccines are in development everywhere. PPE and testing is getting a lot better, and you'll see in the coming days a testing strategy emerge from the governor's office and the central office of the VDH to accompany reopening our government and our businesses and reemerging in society. But going forward, it will be imperative to test liberally, and that'll be a mix of the nasopharyngeal swab tests we now use. That detects people who have the disease at the moment, who are actually shedding virus in their secretions from their nose and their mouth. The antibody tests, they tell you for the most part, who has already had the disease and who may have some immunity going forward. But those two types of testing will have to be done in great numbers, probably 10,000 plus a day, to really enhance our safety going forward. So in terms of going forward and reopening our businesses, it is, when we track this disease and we see how it's elaborating itself in these congregate care facilities, it's very, very evident that in places where people are not using strict personal protective equipment discipline, those are the places where the disease tends to take off faster. So clearly we're learning that the use of protective equipment, specifically masks, is extremely important in controlling the spread of this disease. So going forward, as we reopen, I think all of us are in agreement from the national level down to the state and local level amongst public health authorities that elements of social distancing, elements of protection, specifically adopting facial coverings, cloth face coverings, that's been recommended by the CDC. I would submit going forward, because the virus is going to be with us for the foreseeable future until we get a vaccine or we develop natural population immunity from this thing. That the cloth face coverings and the masks are extraordinarily useful in protecting folks. There are studies that show that if you talk and sneeze and cough without a mask, virus particles or aerosol droplets project many feet beyond the source of emission for somebody coughing or whatever. With a mask, just a tiny percentage of those droplets actually make it beyond the mask. So because we don't know who's sick, we don't know if we're sick or not, really. Many of us could have had COVID-19 and not even know it. If you're sick, it's pretty easy. You can go get tested and we can prove you do or you don't have COVID. But if you're not sick, you don't even know you to be tested. And we don't have the resources yet to test the population at large. So until we get a better source of immunity, and I'm going to say this is going to be, many, many months down the road, a year maybe, then these measures of sanitizing, washing hands, practicing respiratory etiquette, practicing as much social distancing as we practically can. And probably the most important element of this is it's called source control, and that's masking ourselves. You're really protecting not only yourself, but the people that you're with to reduce the spread of this disease. That's going to be an absolutely imperative part of coming out of isolation and going back into close association with each other. So that's pretty much my quick brief. That's very little information about the virus. I could talk for hours about it, but that's the brief, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you, Dr. Williams. Before I open up to my board members for questions, I'd just like to ask a question. When it's in the incubated period, you get tested, will you be tested negative?
So symptoms, people commonly start shedding virus. The people that become symptomatic, people commonly start shedding the virus about 2 days before symptoms appear. If you've been exposed, you obviously are either going to get the disease or not. The tricky thing is you may get the disease and not know it, and the only way to know it is actually to be tested. And eventually that will be more commonplace. But in the incubation period, if you develop the disease, you could very well start shedding the virus, okay, and not know it and test positive maybe 2 or 3 days before your symptoms show up. So yes, you could very well be asymptomatic and test positive in your incubation period if you're in quarantine after an exposure. And usually about 2 weeks, if you have a close exposure to a COVID patient, we recommend quarantine for 2 weeks. And that's pretty much the outer limit of the incubation period of the virus.
Well, once you have it, will it come? Can you get it again? I'm just questioning.
That is a very good question, sir. There are antibodies produced to this virus. We can see them and detect them. And there's actually a program through the American Red Cross and spearheaded by the Mayo Clinic to collect serum from people that have had this disease and try to administer that serum with antibodies to people who are desperately ill. The effectiveness of that treatment is not yet known. But whether or not you can be reinfected and have a second go-round with this or a third go-round with this virus, that is not known at this point in time, but it's obviously a major concern. Most people think that there will be a degree of immunity conferred by infection. How long it lasts, how completely we're protected, those are questions that will only be answered over time.
They're rolling now, so
To me, it just makes sense that, if you have a PPE or you're not clearing it out, and also you're not breathing it, and you're protecting yourself and others. I guess that just kind of like make common sense.
Yes, sir. I cannot emphasize how dangerous this virus is and how insidious it is. In its worst expression, it is deadly. Granted, the vast majority of people that have it will recover, and some of them won't even know they ever had it. But in a subset of people, and especially those vulnerable folks that are older, have some comorbid conditions, but younger folks can have this outcome too. It can interact with your immune system. And well, 60,000 people, we just crossed 60,000 people in the United States have passed away from this virus. So it's not to be minimized, and anything we can do to protect ourselves against it, we should do. I will guarantee you that when I go out in public right now, I am wearing a mask.
Okay, I will turn it to any of my other board members who'd like to ask Dr. Williams a question.
Dr. Williams, this is John Kuntz in Hartfield. Thanks for your time and your very helpful explanation that so many of our community are listening to. My question is, as you've been working with your peers in other health districts, what have you seen in communities that has worked to encourage community members to take the mask wearing seriously? What are the best methods, and where are people doing this the best? What can we learn?
I would only be able to hazard a guess, sir, because I don't have any data that's extraordinarily difficult to gather about mask wearing, other than a gestalt, going out and looking in public venues and seeing how many people are wearing masks. All I can say is that in those areas where there are hundreds of cases of disease, you tend to see masks worn more frequently in those areas that are harder hit. where everybody can demonstrably see the effect of this. And those are our larger population centers, okay? But in our area, honestly, we talk about this in the health department. We're trying to message mask wearing. We set up a Facebook page to try to get that message out. We see lots of people without masks, and the virus is no less deadly in Middlesex than it is in New York City or in Prince William or Alexandria or any of those, Fairfax or any of those other places.
So do you think it's fair to say that a lot of us who are monitoring our county on the VDH website watched us go from 2 cases to 3 cases to 4 cases, and we're using that information to convince ourselves that the problem's not as big as the problem really is? And as a result, the rural areas are probably not wearing masks. And I know you don't have data, but where people are seeing lots of cases, they're naturally responding by wearing the masks more so than in a rural place where we look at the VDH data, say we have 4 cases, and don't take it quite as seriously. Is that possible?
I think absolutely that's true. Yes, when you look at our website and you look at Middlesex and you see 4 cases, mind you, that is an illusion. That there's a lot more than 4 cases out there. I'll guarantee you there's a lot more than 4 cases out there in Middlesex. Every time you go to Lowe's, every time you go to Walmart, every time you go to the drugstore, you're going to pass somebody who has COVID-19. Absolutely. There's no question about it. And you don't know it and they don't know it. That's what's so dangerous. But all you have to do is look 2 rows down to Richmond County, and you can see who had similar community disease levels as Middlesex. But in that setting, with that level of community disease, that was enough for this virus to penetrate into those highly vulnerable areas. And now we have congregate facilities with bad outbreaks and hospitalization and intensive care unit cases and really bad outcomes. So don't let the seemingly low numbers fool you. That is an illusion. Reality is far more serious than what the low number apparently says.
And my last question, Doctor, if there were top 3 things that a citizen should be doing, it should be 1, stay at home as much as you can, 2, 6 feet, 3, mask. Is that the right order?
Currently, I would say yes, sir. But when we emerge and go back to business, I would say stay at home as much as you can. Certainly will apply continually for the foreseeable future, certainly in phase 1, probably in phase 2 as well. For our older folks, our retired folks, and our folks with hypertension, high blood pressure, hypertension, diabetes, kidney disease, lung disease, those sorts of things. Yes, I would say maintaining, no matter what, as we go forward, if it's possible, maintain distance from other people, and wear a mask, wash your hands, and continue that discipline throughout our recovery phase. But yes, sir, I would agree with what you just said. Stay at home, practice social distancing, wear a mask. And the mask, I will say the mask is going to become much more important as we begin to mix together again. It's going to be imperative, in my opinion.
All right. Any other board members would like to have any questions? Dr. Williams?
No, but I would like to thank Dr. Williams for a very illuminating discussion. Thank you very much, sir.
My pleasure and honor, sir. And we'll be here to serve you and answer any questions anybody has. Thank you very much.
Dr. Williams? Hello? He's gone.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we're back live.
Matt Walker?
Yes, sir.
Okay, like I was saying, we were replaying that because last time for the people that couldn't get on so they could see that that video by Dr. Williams. That's what that was all about. At this time, I would like to talk about our agenda that we're going to go down with the agenda. And first, we're going to do a resolution. I'm going to let Matt go through that resolution, and then we're going to discuss that. And then also, we're going to look at ordinance. We're going to look at that, and then we're going to have public input after that. So that it's going to be in that order. So Matt, at this time, could you pull that resolution up?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to attempt to share my screen now. I believe the board have received a number of, well, a large amount of input on this matter. And I think it's the general consensus after many of the board members have reached out to me today that they want to consider a measure just short of an ordinance requiring wearing of masks or other coverings of nose and face, or nose and mouth. So a measure short of that is a resolution strongly encouraging those among us to wear some form of covering over their nose and mouth. Now, I believe the county attorney, Mr. Led Kimbrough, and myself had a hand in drafting this resolution, which I can go over very quickly. It's essentially much of the same supporting information as the ordinance. Of course, it has been modified from ordinance form to resolution form throughout the supporting documentation, all the whereases, if you will. The essential difference is everything after now therefore be it resolved. It moves from an ordinance requiring the wearing of masks to a resolution strongly encouraging the wearing of some form of covering over the nose and mouth. And I have it on the screen. I believe the public that are joining us by computer can see that, but I will read the information below the now therefore be it resolved if the chair would like me to.
Yes, for those who are on phones, I think it would be appropriate.
Very good. So the resolution reads, now therefore be it resolved by the Middlesex Board of Supervisors this 30th day of April 2020. 1, all persons are strongly encouraged to wear some form of covering over their nose and mouth, parentheses, such as a scarf, bandana, handkerchief, or homemade mask from cloth or similar material, parentheses, face mask, at all times when social distancing cannot be assured, such as in retail stores, except A, if an individual has a verified health reason that they cannot wear a face covering, such individual is exempted from the requirement to wear a face mask or face covering. B, when driving, riding in a personal vehicle. C, when necessary for consumption purposes. D, when said person has trouble breathing, is unconscious, is incapacitated, or is otherwise unable to remove the covering without assistance. And finally, E, infants under the age of 2 or children who may have trouble breathing. Number 2, all businesses located within Middlesex County where social distancing cannot be assured are encouraged to post signage requesting patrons and employees to wear some form of face mask. 3, all county employees should represent these guidelines in an exemplary fashion. 4, Middlesex County shall have signage encouraging the wearing of masks or face masks displayed along major traffic routes and other permanent locations. That's the reading, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, well, thank you, Matt, on that. At this time, I would just like to open this up to the board members. And let's talk about this resolution.
Mr. Chairman, this is
Yes.
the county attorney. Heather, I apologize if I may. We're having a little bit of a techno glitch here on our side. Mr. Walker, the draft that you have, there's a slight change in that. I think the latest draft revised paragraph 1 slightly.
Okay, and what's the revision?
So paragraph 1 would read, and I'm going to read it in its entirety. All persons are strongly encouraged to wear some form of covering over their nose and mouth, parenthetical, such as a scarf, bandana, handkerchief, or homemade mask from cloth or similar material, close parenthetical face mask, at all times when out in the public with other people and social distancing cannot be assured. So the change there is at all times when out in the public with other people and social distancing cannot be assured. I will get that to you. I can't seem to send that to you, but I'm working on it.
Okay, very good. With the board's pleasure, I think that should be substituted.
All right. Well, I would like to open up to board comments right this time.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Lord Kimball?
I do have some comments on this. First, I really want to thank all the citizens who have participated in this process. We've had, I think, unprecedented participation by citizens via all of the media that we have available. And I want to thank my fellow board members and staff for working really tirelessly for the last several days in order to try and refine the way that we care for the safety of our citizens. We all share that goal. I know this virus is scary. My mother's first cousin passed away 2 weeks ago from it. It is a very dangerous virus to those people who are vulnerable, most especially. So we want to achieve safety for our citizens. And the question is, how do we maximize our efforts to do this? None of us on the Board of Supervisors has ever owned or operated a retail store, but let's just imagine that we do. And we've got a sign at the front door that says, facial covering is required by all who are capable. Now let's say somebody comes in and they're not wearing a mask and they should be. What rights do we have as a store owner? Well, you have the right to ignore that they don't have their mask on and just make believe that there's nothing wrong. If you have a sign requiring it, you are within your rights to inform that person that they cannot be served there. And you can even ask them to leave the premises. And if they refuse to do so, then you can call the sheriff's department because they're trespassing. The point is that how you handle the situation is up to you, and the regulation that you impose on your private property is up to you. And my hope is that our store owners can be effective with the support of our community in order to ensure the safety of our citizens. I believe that we can be successful at safety with a positive approach. One citizen said to me yesterday, let's try the volunteer approach and see if it works. Another county resident who called me today, who is still in Florida because they haven't returned here, said that in their area, every store has a sign saying, please wear your mask. And he said they get 99.9% compliance. We should invest a little bit of time and money in our positive approach. It won't take much. We need signs along the main highways saying, welcome to Middlesex, please wear a mask. One retail store owner I talked to even said he volunteered to pay for some of those signs himself. We can ask every retail establishment to post signs asking, please wear a mask, we're in this together. Even if they're reluctant to have a firm, no mask, no service, I believe that our community will support that effort. I think we need to tap into the goodwill of our community. It's a spirit that has taken this county through hurricanes, tornadoes, and other catastrophes, and we can focus on the goodwill of maintaining the health of our population. I believe that Middlesex County can be known as a county where people behave safely, and anyone without a mask when they should be wearing one is embarrassed for failing to take this precaution. I believe in my heart that by taking this positive approach, enlisting support, joining together, committing to health, and preserving the can-do spirit of Middlesex County, that we can not only be more effective at preserving our health, we can hold ourselves up as a place where people want to live and care about each other. I'm going to read you an excerpt from an article I read this morning that I really take to heart, and I hope that everyone listening will as well. How we have prevented this coronavirus from unleashing its worst? By heroic exertions of healthcare workers, certainly, but also by small acts performed by countless Americans, staying home, maintaining a safe distance from one another. Each of us is entitled to take our individual credit for that, collecting a diploma, as it were, in social distancing. Yet your individual contribution helps only when the rest of us do our part too. In combination, our small contributions take on the magnitude of a large-scale, life-saving intervention. We're doing something great together. But there's a flip side. The actions of one ordinary person can do a great deal of harm. We've all heard stories of a single super spreader infecting a room full of people, with further infections radiating out from there. Small positive acts by many save lives. A small lapse by one can cost them. So I believe that this resolution asking our citizens and visitors to step up, make social distancing and wearing of facial covers when appropriate, normal and expected behavior will save lives. And I think they're up to it. This ordinance and the popularity and attention that it has brought to this subject, I think is a great asset for us. We have a tremendous audience of people who can influence throughout this county. So I fully support this resolution, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for introducing it.
Thank you for your information. Can I hear from any other board members at this time?
Mr. Chair, this is John Koontz. I just want to echo Lud's comments, and I'll be brief because I suspect we'll have a lot of public comments. I couldn't have said it better myself. I think this is a resolution, not an ordinance. I think this is an opportunity to grab the minds of our community and recognize the opportunity that we have to really showcase Middlesex as a place that truly cares about not only ourselves and each other, but our visitors and the industry that brings to our community. So thank you, Lud.
Thank you, John. Pete, okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I would also like to thank Lud for an excellent job, especially his talk that he just gave. And I had two comments concerning it, but he covered the number two so well, about posting signs at each store, and including that the store can say that if you don't have a mask, please don't enter. And you may not get any service whatsoever if you don't. I was thinking that should be part of our resolution, but Lud pretty well cleared that up, that the store owner can do that on their own. The other very, 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 very minor comment that I made is I think that in talking about scarves and cloths and different ways of making masks, we should also say, or commercial N95 or better mask should be included in the coverings. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. All right.
I got
Reg?
a couple of things. I appreciate Lud and the ones who work on this resolution. It's a lot of good things in it that I see that are very good. I've been on the phone all day, talking to different ones in Harmony Village District and different things. And they would tell me, you know, they said right out front that I'm against this right away before you got the conversation, you know? And I'm gonna tell you what happened to me today, what I did not like. If you check your email, I stopped by a store because I wanted to talk to him and see what we need to do about this. What can we do? But at the store, it said that we'll close down to March the 17th, but we are taking orders and everything, and we'll deliver to you. So that particular text or mail I got, he had already answered his question. And what I'm talking about is awareness. One thing Lud said about the signs and all these, I think is great. I think we got to make people aware of what's going on. But let me give you another scenario. I left there and I went to Food Line today because I wanted to look around really to get the feel of what people were doing. So I go in Food Line and shop, and the very first thing I seen was a cash register, no mask, no hand, rubber gloves, and even the one that was pointing you to different aisles did not have any protective equipment on. But as I walked through the store, I noticed the older ones, basically the ones that's on this committee, probably 50 and better. All of us was masked up. You was walking through the store, all masked up. You know, you would think that we are carrying something that we don't want to give to somebody else. But let me flip the coin on you. Even at the nursing homes, for instance, people that stay in their bed and walk in the nursing homes don't bring it to themselves. And I've been pondering about this. It's one way of decisions you got to make. Sometimes it's not as easy. You can't pat everybody on the back and say, you know something? I think if I have enough communication that you're going to do the right thing. I'll give you an example. Speed limit is 55 miles an hour on the highway, yet you still write tickets. It's clear and it's everything. And people go to the court and they pay a fine. All right, so what am I saying here? I'm saying it's like this here, that you can do the same thing without trying to pat everybody on their back, because some decisions are hard to make. We are here today having a conversation about something we need to do in Middlesex County when we know very well that if things was done at the proper level, this conversation would not be happening. We listened at Dr. Williams, and he was telling us about awareness, because that's what we really got to deal with. We got to have awareness of the ones who are not aware of it. Now we're going to say it to you. We're going to tell the older ones, yeah, you keep on wrapping up and everything, because some of the younger ones don't believe that. So you get the most calls from them. And you know something, it's hard for the ones who really realize that your immune system break down and then you get attacked. You wearing protected gear, equipment. Now we're going to unleash something that says, you know something, let's do this thing for 2 weeks and we'll see how it go. Well, you know, in Washington State, what happened when they stepped out and told everybody what was going to go on, they laughed at them. See, you can't be a likable person all the time. Now, just like I'm saying, I was on the phone today for a long time, talking to different ones, and most of them at the end of the conversation, you know, they said it made sense. You know, they never fought. I said, you know, you got a family of 4, like you said, 5 cases or something in Middlesex now. The doctor told us today that it's a whole lot more than 5 in Middlesex County. We don't have testing gear. You know, so we look at this. What we really want to do is we want to pat somebody on the back. We want to pat them on the back for saying, let's go the other route. So we talking about 2 different things. Now break down the difference. Let's tell you the difference. Is it wrong to have something written down to say, hey, man, this is a warning. You should have your mask on. You know, and so when we start doing things like that, that is communication. But the signs, everything I did, awareness, I just think it should be some oomph to it. And right now we're not offering any oomph. And we are dependent as a board of supervisors say, hey, you're gonna do the right thing. And we'll lack for you to do the right thing. I just want people to be more aware. There are consequences when you do things wrong in life and how you decide on it. And I'm gonna sum it up like this. I said, you know, you got a family. You got an elderly family. You got a grandfather, you got a son, and you got grandkids. All right, at the very time, the grandfather wraps up and put his clothes on. The son or the daughter, the sister-in-law, they'll come in the house and don't figure you need to wear it. So they're not wearing it. You're not wearing it to protect. Should you be wearing it to protect your child from you instead of your child really protecting themselves from, so you wouldn't have to do that? Because it's our age group are the ones who is getting into this type of position. And that shouldn't be. And we shouldn't make it easy on someone that is saying, hey, I don't want to wear no mask. But I'm gonna tell you something, I talked to 10 different people today, and I can promise you that most of them started saying, say, you know, I never thought about it like that. If we don't have a problem wearing a mask, then you won't have no consequences from it. But if you take the very people that we use the word enforce, I don't worry about enforce, because all of us got jobs to do, and all of us should be in the position that this thing is not a joke. It's not gonna go away. Our awareness is gonna have to continue to grow a lot stronger than what it is. We're not testing nothing, so we don't know how many cases in Middlesex County. And the big denominator is that we turning loose the campgrounds, and we don't know what they're gonna bring. We gotta even make them more aware of what is going on in Middlesex instead of patting us on the back, because guess they wanted to come in last month, okay? So they want to come in. So you really think the way is changing? So, you know, and I got my way that consequences of what you do, you can make them as easy as you want to be, but consequences it's just got it. In business, they got the right to say, hey, you know, you wear your mask as you come in here. You know, or you're not welcome, I got you. Okay, but you should also have a mask to offer them. So business is gonna have to do, and what I did see is businesses are doing stuff a little different. And that's what you wanna do based on awareness. And don't let somebody that kid you or get all threatened by saying you should wear a mask. I think the first resolution was too much overboard, but I think we need something to let people know that we have a speed limit in Middlesex County. And this county, we are going to wear a mask, okay? And if you don't want to wear a mask, you lead up to ownership and say, hey, you're gonna have to shop somewhere else. And offer them to wear a mask. So, and that's how I feel about it. And we can't keep trying to please everybody, because I can promise you, this is not a joke once again. And I just thank y'all for listening. I thank Love once again. I think a lot of key points are in it. I just think it needs a little bit of meat. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Reggie. Appreciate that. Okay, well, at this time, you know, I've been contemplating on it. A lot of people been calling, and, you know, I've been answering their calls, and, you know, you have about 50-50, you know, even having a resolution or ordinance, or for somebody to be doing something about what's going on in the world and in Middlesex County. And I said to myself, I'm gonna go around through the county, and I went into a grocery store, and a local one right here, and I talked to a young lady that managed the place, and, you know, I said to myself, you know, how are things going, and what is your opinion on, you know, putting a mask or different things like that? Because I said, you know, we may implement something. And she said, well, you know, I like the business. She said, no problem about it. I like the business, but, you know, we want to be safe. All our employees are wearing safety equipment. And she told me, well, let me tell you an incident that happened. She said, a person came in there, bought what he needed to buy, brought it to the counter and said, hey, I gotta be quarantined for 14 days. And I gotta buy this, and, you know, and just went out the store. And then at that time, you know, she's saying, well, you know, if he was tested positive, coming to the store, not wearing anything, and doesn't have any gloves, no mask or nothing. And then, went around the store, got what he got. And then, she said, it's sad. She said, it's very sad because a lot of people are not taking this serious. And this is a serious situation. And she was just saying, well, she ended up cleaning up everything very good. And clean up, she went around and cleaned up everything because after he said that. And I think if we need to put a little more, as Reggie said, meat, we need to let the people know that this is very important situation that we're living in. And it's time that, that I guess none of us have ever been in before. And we're in uncharted territory when you have a disease that you can be asymptomatic and spread it and spread it to other people and they can die from it. But yet you have no symptoms. And like you're saying, we need better testing and understand that. But and then I hear people say, well, people from the flu die more than that. But you gotta understand, more people are dying from this disease at a short period of time. And we have over 60,000 in the United States dying and almost 1 million over the world. So, people gotta make wise decisions. We're all this together, but we gotta make this serious and a serious situation when we make our decision. And that's what I'm really looking at, this is not a game to play with, it's a serious situation that we are looking at, and we got to make some good final decisions. I know a lot of times people say, well, what about babies and different things like that? That's going to be the parents' common sense. A lot of common sense has to deal with what we're looking at and facing. And if you go into these stores, regardless if we make a ordinance or a resolution, be wise and be respectful for others. That's what we got to look at. Be respectful. If you wear a mask, I'm not spreading it to you, and you're not spreading it to me. And we can be better on letting this disease trend down. Well, at this time, all our board members had discussed this resolution at this time. And as we're gonna go through this order, I would say, I will put it out to the board. Do we want, and I know we had an order, but I just, because we had to change so many things. Do you want to hear from the public first? Or do you want to talk about the ordinance a little bit? I want to put that up to the board right now, because I've tried to get contact with everyone. Do y'all want to vote on the ordinance, or do you want to hear from the public first? Or vote on the resolution, or hear from the public first?
Mr. Chair, this is John in Hartfield. I'd like to hear from the public, and I'd just like to remind folks, it's a 3-minute limit per person, and if you hear what you wanted to say by somebody else, please cede your time, and also state where you're from, your hometown in Middlesex, so that we know which district you're speaking from. That would be my view.
Okay. If the rest of the board agree on that, I will read the public comment hearing procedures of electronic meeting when it's held.
And Mr. Chairman, just real quickly, I do have the updated draft of the resolution on your screen at this time.
Okay. And what are the new measures on that?
I've highlighted some language that I think Mr. Mansfield suggested, such as 3M mask, surgical mask. I added that to the suggested facial coverings, and the updated language that Ms. Lewis read for us is on here as well. At all times when out in public with other people and social distancing cannot be assured. Example, retail stores, with the following exceptions. And that was the changes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all right. Well, at this time, we're going to open this up to the public, but right now I'm going to read the requirements for the panelists, and I have Kevin Gentry that will break it down to the different people because I don't see it, and he's running everything. The chairman will invite each additional person other than board members and staff attending the meeting to make comments. Those attending the meeting with video capability will use their raise hand features to request to speak. Those with audio only capability will use the 9 feature on their phone, which will indicate the moderator that you wish to speak. Use 6 to mute your phone. Each speaker will give his or her name and address of the record. Each speaker or individual will be given the opportunity to speak during the public comment period and/or each public hearing item. All comments and remarks will be addressed to the board of supervisors, not the audience, and individuals are allowed 3 minutes each. And Betty will be keeping the time on that. At this time, Kevin, you have the order of the participants?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to go ahead and call them out by name or phone number, and I'll allow them to speak. So the first one I have is Professor Craig Donor. And if you'd like to unmute your connection, you can. I'll go ahead and unmute that. Okay, you have the floor.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Just a minute.
Okay. Yep. I just had a comment on this. I believe that this needs to be not a resolution, but an ordinance. You guys did touch base a little bit. I'm sorry, my name is Craig Donor, by the way. I live in Remlick, Virginia. 651 Flats Road. I believe this needs to be an ordinance, not a resolution. The reason why I believe it needs to be an ordinance is we have many campgrounds and we get a lot of visitors here from larger areas than the areas that you know, we are normally accustomed to. If we allow the campgrounds to open up, these people will come here from larger cities to our area, and more people means that there's more chances for you to get someone infected. You're not wearing the mask for your protection, you're wearing the mask for someone else's protection. And just like Mr. Jesse spoke when he went into the local store, you know, the lady was saying that someone came in and someone said they had to be quarantined for 14 days and he had no personal protective equipment. That should not be allowed. Everybody should be required to wear personal protective equipment, gloves, masks, whatever. So that's why I think it needs to be an ordinance. Also, you're like I said, you're doing this for other people's protection, not just yours. And I will cede the remainder of my time to anybody else that needs it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Kevin.
Thank you. And next up is a gentleman only identified as Sully. And Mr. Sully, you may need to unmute your connection if you're on your end.
Using a *6.
I can, what's that, Betty?
*6 to unmute.
Okay,
Oh, there you go.
have you got me now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is Jim O'Sullivan. I'm from Hardyville, and I'm a business owner in Hartfield. I am known as Sully the Barber in Hartfield. I'm 77 years old. I want to open my business back up, and you can bet your life that I'm going to practice all the healthcare and cleanliness and sterilization and disinfectant that I possibly can, not only to protect you, but for myself. And therefore, I was very negative whenever you guys were putting it out in the paper yesterday as an ordinance. I got real negative, and I even wrote Mr. Ludd a couple of emails posted on Facebook. We are smart enough in this county to know how to take care of ourselves when necessary, when to wear the mask, when not to wear the mask. We don't have to be led around like kids. We've been following the governor, the president, and the states. We've got enough regulations going on now. And I really thank you, Mr. Ludd, or Ludd, I think it's your first name, my supervisor, for a positive can-do attitude. You got me on your side, and I support your resolutions 100%, and I'm with you. But if as an ordinance and a punishment and leading by threat, Negative. Don't want to hear it. Thank you, sir, and thank you for your time, and I yield back.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Tiffany Robbins.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi, I'm a registered nurse and I am currently employing staff across the county. I work for Bay Aging, and we have been sending staff into the homes of clients since the beginning of this epidemic, beginning on March 16th. We serve multiple county residents, and I employ staff that go into the homes that are following the ordinance of, or CDC recommendations rather than ordinance for wearing masks and providing safety and support for seniors in our county. We are also in charge of the Helping Neighbors program, where we are delivering meals to hundreds of residents across this county for free in an effort to maintain the safety of seniors and to maintain the care and well-being of our community members. We have managed to serve these members in this county without any spread of disease. None of our clients or staff have been tested positive with COVID. We are wearing masks when appropriate and doing so without being told to or made to do so. We are making appropriate healthcare decisions and ensuring that we are providing safe care at all times every day. And we will continue to do so without being made to, without a threat of a fine or jail time, to ensure the continued safety of our residents in this county. I think that to provide an ordinance in this county will divide our community, create continued negativity, and that is not what we need right now. We need to continue to do what we can do to boost the economy in this county as much as we can, because businesses are hurting, constituents are hurting, and the more that we do things that will divide people is just going to hurt our county economically and safety-wise. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Okay, and I'd like to remind everybody that when you do introduce yourself, make sure you give us your name, please, and your address, if you would. Next up is Michael Hermantz.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I live in the city of Colonial Heights, which is about an hour and a half from here, but I have a camper down at Bush Park. I believe it's in Hartfield. As a resident of Bush Park, I will tell you a lot of people at Bush Park Campground are nurses, firefighter, EMS, work in the medical field, retired from the medical field or police departments in our area and surrounding areas in the state of Virginia. We have a lot of residents who are elderly, who live in the state of Florida, and they use this campground as their summer home to get out of Florida and to get back in this area. I know as one of the patrons of Bush Park, I can tell you, me and my family spend a lot of time and money down there on the campground on the weekends. I also, have a medical condition. I have COPD. So yes, I have to watch who I'm around and what I'm doing. Unfortunately, I heard one of your board members say that he went into a Food Lion and he was shocked by what he saw. I can tell you, I work at Food Lion here in my hometown, and I can tell you we follow all standards and cleaning procedures that were followed, that was set up by our, Food Lion Corporation. We wipe down every shopping cart when it comes back from, the lot. I can tell you we have shields in place between the registers and the customers and the cashiers. The cashiers wear face masks, they wear gloves. You put your card in for your transaction, like your credit card. They wipe the machine down right away. There's constantly sterilization going on in our store. We have hired over 10 different people to come in and actually spend all day long wiping door handles down and everything else. So I would like to say, as somebody who's been down in y'all's area for like almost 7 years and spends lots of money in y'all's areas, and I believe in shopping small, dealing with the small businesses is what I like, because we do like coming down there for that. But we've gotten I've heard a lot of negativity from everybody about, oh, if we come down there, we're going to be bringing the virus with us. No, not everybody's going to be bringing the virus with us. And in Colonia Heights, where I live at, I can tell you we have 3 known cases as of right now. But I agree with y'all. Even though we have a testing facility here, doesn't mean everybody's pulling in and getting tested. So unfortunately, I'm going to say it like this: because we have 3 known testings in this area, doesn't mean I'm bringing the virus with me. Me and my family would just like to get down to our camper, have fun, relax after a hard week of work. And I just like to have fun with y'all. But I feel like y'all are giving us bad vibes. I yield.
Thank you. Next.
All right, up next we have Robin Wells. Please state your name and your address for us. Oh, I think she's left us. Okay, I'm going to go on down the list. And next up is Trudy. Please state your name and your address.
This is Trudy Fegum. I live in Hartfield, and all of the board members, good evening to all of you. I have communicated with all of you, and you know that I am opposed to the ordinance because it is unconstitutional and not enforceable. Our sheriff has admitted that he would not try to enforce it, especially by the means that you have included in that ordinance. But the resolution I do want to speak to, I would prefer the first one over the second one. The reason being, the second one includes public, and you've not defined what public is. I know that we have common sense, and I know it will be exercised, but I also know there's going to be children.
I think she accidentally mute her audio, did she?
Trudy, we can no longer hear you. Can you check your audio? I don't see her muted, but I do not hear her. I don't either.
Betty, can you pause the clock, please? Thank you.
You still with us, Trudy?
You may have muted her phone line on her end. You can always come back to her, I guess.
It doesn't show muted. I'm just going to go ahead and skip down then. Next up, Mr. Chairman, we have Hank Dunton.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'd like to thank you all for all of your hard work. I'm Hank Dunton. I live in Urbana, Virginia on Taylor Avenue. And I think you all probably all got my email with a copy of the response I got from the Rutherford Institute in Charlottesville concerning the legality and enforceability of the ordinance. And I'd like to go on record as saying I totally oppose the ordinance, but I wholeheartedly support the resolution. I'm a high-risk person myself, and I think the resolution is the way to go. And I think putting business owners and owners of other facilities, putting the responsibility for ensuring that people are wearing masks there is a great deal more enforceable than entrusting the enforcement to a handful of sheriff's deputies, only a few of which are on duty at any one time in a very large county. So with that being said, obviously the Middlesex County can require it in their buildings, and any other facility can require it on their property, and it would be a great deal more enforceable. So that's pretty much all I've got to say, but I do appreciate Mr. Kimbrough's observations and comments, and I do wholeheartedly support the resolution, and thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you. Next.
Okay, next up we have Tommy Kennedy. Please state where you're from and your full name, please.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, my name is Tommy Kennedy. I'm from Locust Hill. I'm here to oppose the opposition for the resolution and the ordinance. While I do not have a problem with the mask, I think it should be left up to the citizens and the retailers to do that. As of today, we've only had 8 cases in this county. I mean, we have done that as a community, and we have proven that we can be responsible with this virus. And earlier, you guys were talking about protecting fellow citizens from death. And I have numbers from the CDC that from February 1st to April 25th in Virginia, we had 298 COVID-19 deaths. We had 961 from pneumonia, 107 from influenza, and that was reported by our state. We've had 2,695 deaths from influenza this whole season. So my thing is, why are you all of a sudden showing interest with COVID versus all these other, when pneumonia has been 3 times higher death rate in this state? I think we as a community can control this. And if we don't want to have masks and enforcement, that should be up to us and the businesses. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is a phone number. I'm just going to call the number out and then the person can introduce themselves and where they're from. And that number is going to be 804-690-5463.
The board, my name is. Can you hear him?
Yes.
Okay. I appreciate you taking my call this evening. My name is Harold Muller. I live at 1939 Renwick Drive in Urbana, Virginia. I was not in support of an ordinance when I saw the draconian penalties that were involved in it. But after listening to everyone tonight, there are going to be some hard cases out there that are just not going to abide by common sense resolutions to put a mask on. If everybody was going to do that, then you could put if everybody was going to wear a mask and do what they're supposed to do, you could put any kind of ordinance out there that you wanted because they'd never have to worry about it. It would never be enforced. They would draw no penalties. It's like my children going around the house. If they didn't mess up the house, they never have to clean it up. There'd be no penalty. There has to be something that's not draconian in its measures, where it's a simple fine after adequate warnings. All of the signage is a very good thing, but the signage should also carry under ordinance so-and-so and enacted by Middlesex County Board of Supervisors. And that ordinance is not for the average person. It shouldn't be. If we're going, everybody that's talked on wanting to have other than an ordinance has said they can take care of the health requirements themselves. Well, if they're going to do that, they don't have any fear of an ordinance. It shouldn't divide anybody. It should allow us just simply to practice good health procedures, but yet give a mechanisms to our law enforcement officers or our enforcing individuals to make sure that people get the message that they're going to have to wear a mask in Middlesex County. Thank you very much and have a good evening. And thanks for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have someone identified as John Smith. Please state your name and where you're from.
Mic is muted.
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. My name is Eileen Smith. I'm John's wife. We live on Waverly Road in Urbana. Good evening, gentlemen. On March the 6th in Virginia, the issues regarding COVID-19 were addressed in Virginia with the Department of Education and the state school superintendents. That was 58 days ago we were talking about this. 58 days. In those 58 days, we've only had 4 cases in Middlesex County. There could be more, you're right. The resolution that you are bringing forth is one where people who want to do what is right and just will do those things. The ordinance, I feel strongly you're going overboard in an extreme manner, and the bullying and the dictatorial consequences for non-compliance is in the category of outrageous. Thank you.
Thank you.
We did it right.
We're going to try Robin Wells again.
Can you hear me, Kevin?
Yes,
Sure.
I hear you.
Good evening, and Mr. Chairman, thank you for the time. I want to tell you that we talk about seniors only getting this, but I know that that's not true. Even children get it. We had heard of two-year-old children yesterday. That's one thing. Mr. Williams mentioned Food Lion, and since that's a bit of a commercial, I'll say, go to Deltaville Market. You'll see every single employee there with mask and gloves on. And then finally, I would say that I'm very definitely in favor of the resolution, but you can be assured that I will always have mask and gloves on. And the one question I would ask is, how many people need to be infected before we convert the resolution to an ordinance? Thank you very much, and I yield my time.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have Chrissy Fukushima.
All right. Hi, thank you. My name is Chrissy Fukushima, and I'm a resident of Jamaica, Virginia. I did submit a written comment via email earlier today, and I would like to amend what I submitted based on you all's change today. While I respect every individual's right to wear a mask, I do not agree with a mandate for all residents to wear one. I believe the change from ordinance to resolution is appropriate, and I appreciate the Board of Supervisors' comments surrounding the change. The original proposed ordinance and associated consequences for non-compliance were extreme and extend beyond the scope of what is reasonable, customary, and constitutional. My hope is that you all will continue to be respectful of individual rights and will advocate for individual choices based on facts, not fear. Wearing a mask and remaining at home should be a personal decision, not a mandate from local, state, or federal government. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have Tiffany Robbins.
Hi, I've already spoken this evening. I'm a resident of Hartfield, Virginia. I don't really have anything else to add. I support the comments that have been mentioned by our other constituents, and I appreciate everything that everyone has contributed, including our Board of Supervisors. And I do agree with maintaining the resolution aside from the ordinance making it mandatory. I think the strong recommendation to wear masks is appropriate rather than making it a mandatory ordinance.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just for the record, if you've already spoken, we generally don't allow you to speak twice. That was my mistake, but I'm going to go down to the next person, Alex Moore.
And just real quick, Kevin, before we get to Alex's comments, after you speak, if you can, lower your hand. I think that may have been the issue. The hand was still raised.
All right, go ahead, Alex.
Yes, I was just trying to find out where all these sick people are. Where are y'all getting y'all statistics from to make everybody wear a mask? I live in.
Could you give us your address? Could you give us your address?
799 Fishing Bay Road.
Thank you.
Yep. Deltaville, Virginia. I'm just trying to figure out, I work in Middlesex, I live in Middlesex, I spend my money in Middlesex, and this is just crazy. It's really getting out of hand. Forcing people to do something that they don't want to do is just insane. We live in the land of the free. I feel free. When y'all try to enforce stuff on people, that doesn't make me feel free. That's pretty much all I got to say.
Thank you.
Y'all have a nice evening. Thank you.
You too.
All right, the next participant is identified as T Fortune. And please state your name and where you're from.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. My name is Anthony Fortune. I'm T Fortune's husband. I live at 817 Red Heart Drive. I'm from Hampton, Virginia. And we were just concerned with, so we're members of Bethpage, and we understand that you guys have a county to protect. And, you know, I work here in the shipyard, and, you know, we have standards in place that we wear masks when we enter the workforce, but when we're out on public roads or on our own property, we're not required to wear a mask. And so I guess my question really is depending on the route that you guys make a decision on, if we were to attend Bethpage, would we be required to wear a mask in the facility if we were on our campsite? I appreciate your time and thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Barbara Cockrell.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, as an older person in Middlesex County, I've been very fortunate in that I have family here who really have taken care of me and don't want me to go out. But on the few occasions that I have been out in the last 6 weeks or so, I see a lot of people who are not wearing masks, who don't seem to be practicing any kind of protective behavior. And I think if they were going to, they'd be doing it already. So I'm inclined to think that the ordinance in some form, whether it's this form or whether it maybe needs some more work, is probably necessary. We can see by the fact that the number of cases in Middlesex County have doubled overnight, that this virus is extremely volatile. And I believe Dr. Williams said in his presentation, it doesn't know any boundaries. So I hope that if you pass the resolution, I hope it will be with the idea of revisiting it. If the motivation is not sufficient to get people to wear masks. I was in a store the other day and the clerk was wearing a mask, but it was down around her neck. So I think that's kind of indicative of what is happening. People are not taking it seriously. And I think you are going to need to do something to make it be taken more seriously. If this doesn't work, if you do pass the resolution instead of the ordinance and it doesn't work, what are your plans for revisiting it and when? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, next up is Laura Walker. Please state your name and where you're from.
100 Ferry Road, Hartfield. So we appreciate your service, and we really do understand that you don't make a living serving the board, so thank you for your service. And I do know that you realize that the citizens of Middlesex are struggling because of the unconstitutional stance on requiring businesses to shut their doors for more than 6 weeks, knowing the impact of this quote unquote pandemic is nothing that's of the sort in our country. Our president, Donald Trump, has made it clear that the health of citizens requires the health of our economy. And so many of our neighbors here in Middlesex could not agree more. If you look to countries like Sweden, who has remained open for business as usual during this world crisis, they have realized a 0.0002% death rate in their nation. According to the COVID-19 dashboard that is broadcast and managed at the Center of Systems Science and Engineering at Johns Hopkins University, we have 4 confirmed cases in Matthews County and 5 cases in Middlesex County that have contracted the virus. Gloucester County, a town center for many Middlesex County residents to get supplies needed to eat and live, have experienced 23 cases, of which we've realized 1 fatality. Housing just under 60,000 residents among the 3 counties with less than 40 cases and 1 death would suggest that those thinking about this form of common sense approach, there is no threat. Furthermore, in Virginia, with 8 million residents, where we have 15,000 known cases who have contracted the virus with less than 550 who have perished, also suggests that the virus is far less harmful than the seasonal flu. My 83-year-old father, who was born and raised in this community, has worked most of his life in this community, and myself, who are citizens, really are asking the Board of Supervisors for Middlesex County to not only stop engaging in this activity where you're trying to unconstitutionally put burden of mask on our citizens, but also to stop the anti-business that's crippling our citizens. Let's come together and work on a plan to rebirth our lost revenue instead of further misrepresenting the facts to the public and taking away our constitutional freedoms. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we have one speaker who was accidentally thrown off because they had a technical glitch on their end. So I'm going to see if she would like to add anything, and that's Trudy. If you're out there, Trudy Fegan.
There. Now I can speak, I believe.
Yes.
This is Trudy, and thank you. And yes, I was thrown off because there was an electrical disconnection. So, but thank you for allowing me to finish up. As you know, I was supportive of the resolution, the first draft, rather than the way it had been changed, and I still stand behind that. What I did want to say is I really appreciated Mr. Jesse saying that we need to be wise and respectful to others. That is the bottom line of this whole thing, absolutely. And I appreciated also the statement about awareness and education. I believe that our board and all of us could do a great service to our entire community if we just continually remind people the importance of wearing masks, and that you are protecting me, I'm protecting you, and we're doing it because we really care about each other. But again, I do not support the ordinance in any way, shape, or form. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Trudy.
All right, Mr. Chairman, next up is Alan Hunt. Please state your name and where you're from.
And push *6 to unmute your phone.
Yeah, if you're on a phone, it's *6 to unmute. If you're on the Zoom app, if you kind of mouse down into the lower left-hand corner, you should see the little microphone icon, and you can click on that and unmute yourself if you have the proper equipment. Okay, I think we lost him.
He dropped off.
Okay, all right, we're gonna move right along. I see D. Corman Weitzman. Please state your name and where you're from. All right.
Okay, I'm here.
Yep. Okay.
Hi. I'm D. Corman Weitzman, the 68 Villa Ridge Drive in Hartfield. And I just have some questions for people to think about. and a statement first. One is accommodating. Maybe if the groceries or businesses have personnel who come there with no mask and they say they don't want to wear one, and if they have a list, then the business could say, okay, we have a shopper, we'll shop for you, but we won't let you come in because we say no shirts, no shoes, no mask. Okay, my question is to why is it unconstitutional to be respectful to others by staying home, staying 6 to 10 feet away, and wearing a mask? And people consider that the ordinance might have been forceful, but the resolution gives people a choice to do what they believe is right. Hopefully everybody in Middlesex believes that, keeping themselves and other people safe is right. And I don't know why people think that it's unconstitutional to ask people to be that way. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, we have one more, and that is Robert Birch. Please state your name and where you're from.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Kay Birch. I live at 172 Waverly Road, Urbana, Virginia. And I'm just wondering, as in, I know the man that spoke from Hampton said that he worked at the shipyard and that he has a place at Bethpage. Has it been considered that when these people are coming from everywhere to the campground, the risk of infecting everyone else in the small town of Urbana? Because I know that when I myself go to Urbana Market to purchase things for my family, that they do not have enough. There's not enough. And I know that there's certainly not going to be enough to support the people that will be coming from all over to Bethpage, also here to get their resources. And when they do come, is there going to be a confinement to the campground? Are they going to be able to move about throughout the county freely? Will they be required to wear a mask? This is some questions that I believe everybody has been wondering. I don't know if you've been on Facebook recently, but I feel like it's something that everyone needs to be looking at, about everyone's concern over the campground opening and their resources needed. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Lauren Wood. Please state your name and where you're from.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. My name's Lauren Wood, also known formally as Radabaugh. I live at 381 Virginia Street in Urbana. I want to say tonight that I'm in favor of the ordinance. I have a feeling that it's going to end up the resolution perhaps modified. Been talking to a lot of people about this issue. We're all in this together, but it's not the same for everyone. My own house is very modified in this situation. I have a son that works at a state prison, and in the past 2 weeks, we've seen the cases there go from 0 to 107 and likely to be 200 by the end of the week. I've heard a lot of talk about freedoms and rights and things like that, and I certainly don't want to infringe on that. But I also want to say that you're doing the right thing by wearing a mask. For my house, we understand that the risk is higher here, that we are carrying the virus and we are quarantining as much as we possibly can and wearing masks when we go out in the public for fear of giving it to people that we know in our community. There are certainly people here that we care very much about that are elderly, that are immune system compromised, have diabetes. I have several friends in the county that are pregnant right now. It would kill me to think that we brought something to our county and people that we care very much about. But I also understand that my son's job is very important to the state of Virginia. We've also heard a lot of comments about how there's only been 4 cases in Middlesex, now 8 overnight. Things can change quickly. Again, in the past 2 weeks, the place that my son works at has gone from 0 to 200, well, possibly 200 by the end of the week, but at least at 107 right now. The scope of our county is about to change. The campgrounds are opening fully. I understand there's going to be restrictions, but the campgrounds are opening. The weekenders will be coming more. Our own citizens are going to get bolder with the nicer weather and with all of us having cabin fever and wanting to get out. I just think that it is the right thing to do. Again, I support the ordinance and at a minimum, the resolution. I think it is a very small ask for you to wear a mask in a public space when you go in the grocery store, when you go to Dollar General, when you go to the gas station. Think about truly what are the minutes that you would be wearing that mask to potentially be responsible and protect yourself and others from this terrible virus from taking someone we love. Thank you. Thank you, Board of Supervisors. I know it's a thankless job.
Thank you, Lauren.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, next we have Pete Wright. Please state your name and where you're from.
My name is Pete Wright. I'm from Stingray Point, and I agree with the last speaker. You have a thankless job. You are all between a rock and a hard place, and we all appreciate your willingness to have this open dialogue, open forum. I am in favor of the ordinance. I am an attorney, and I recognize that a resolution sounds nice, but from a legal perspective, it's a waste of time and a worthless piece of paper. It sounds and looks good. I'm not worried about the Middlesex citizens and those who have called in and who have voiced a lot of strong opinions about their rights. That's not who I'm worried about. I'm worried about those who come from out of town to Middlesex, who believe that this virus is really nothing to worry about, much ado about nothing. And when they come to Middlesex from out of town and they have had a little too much alcohol in them, they love to flout the rules and prove that they're tough. And that's who I'm worried about. And that's who I think all of us have to worry about. Those individuals, they are out there. Assuming you pass this resolution, I request that you put on the docket another date about 3 weeks from now to revisit the issue, just to revisit it and maybe have another open hearing or session of this sort to revisit it, because I'm afraid that it's really not going to accomplish much at all, though it sounds good. But thank you for all that you are doing. You're in a tough position.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman, next up we have, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, it's John Wiedner or perhaps Widener. Please state your name and where you're from.
Yes, it's John Widener. I'm 132 Pinecrest Circle in Deltaville. And I think I'm being heard.
Yes, sir. We hear you loud and clear.
Great, thank you. Hey, the first thing I wanted to say was that I really appreciate Lud's email exchange over the last couple of days. In particular, he he coaxed me to the CDC recommendation on wearing masks. And what wasn't in Lud's email was that these masks are especially to be used in areas of significant community-based transmission. And it's also, CDC says it's a voluntary public health measure. And I think that the board right now is in the right place with a resolution as opposed to having an ordinance. This needs to be a voluntary thing. Okay. Now, we hear that the mask is a small thing to do, but I think we're missing something big here. The mask is covering us from the human interaction that we are so used to in our exchanges, reading facial expressions, and it kind of dehumanizes us. And I think it's a big ask for us to, if you will, hide behind a mask. Even if we think we're protecting somebody else, I think we're really doing a disservice to our community. My daughter texted me during the meeting and said that when my granddaughter felt small today because she had to be out in public with her face covered. Okay, so this, these face coverings is not what we do in America. I mean, we didn't like it when the Antifa thugs were covering their faces. We don't like it when Muslim women cover their faces. And I think that this covering of faces is something that we don't want to be the new normal in the United States, let alone in Middlesex County. And so I think what we need to do is I think we need to learn how to live with this disease, just as we've learned how to live with the flu. Okay, there's a little rough patch here, and but it's a risk that we can manage, and we can manage it if we stay informed, if we think about others, and we act with just a bit more courage in how we go about our business out in public. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have someone who's identified here as J.B. McMeans. Please state your name and where you're from.
Good evening, gentlemen. Joe McMeans, Pine Top District. I'd like to thank you guys for doing all you can, and I understand it's a thankful position, and I understand you're between a rock and a hard place. I'd further like to thank you for listening to the social media and allowing us to reach out directly to the individuals, especially Lud. Thanks for the email correspondence. I am in favor of the resolution wholeheartedly. I feel imposing fines and perhaps even jail time for not following such things is, while it may be warranted in the future, I don't believe now is the time to do that. The country's on edge, everybody's on edge. Demanding that people do things under fines, I feel is a little bit much at the moment. The president just announced that he's letting down their guard. He's going to be traveling. Things are going to be going back to normal. And meanwhile, we're ramping up to fine people for wearing masks. I think that was a little bit too much. I believe the citizens of the county will be more than happy to comply when asked to. I feel the businesses, which already have most of them that I've been to, have petitions between the cashier and the customer. The guys are willing to do whatever we ask them to, and I just think that's the way to go. The resolution is definitely, maybe it won't be. Maybe you have to change your minds and visit this again, like the attorney just mentioned. But as for now, I think the resolution is definitely the way forward. Anyway, thank you for listening. Good night.
Thank you.
All right, next we have someone who is identified as DSW, and please state your name and where you're from. Go ahead. Okay, they're unmuted, but I can't hear them. Are you there?
I'm not hearing anything.
All right, let's, all right, we'll have to come back to that. There may be a technical issue on their side. All right, let's go to someone identified here as Morse. Please state your name and where you're from.
My name is John Morse. I'm from Richmond. For 100 years or more, the government has tried to regulate common sense and encourage people through examples and behaviors to do the next right thing. And unfortunately, it's been largely unsuccessful. At the end of the day, people who care will do, and the people who won't. I encourage you to pass the resolution. I encourage you to educate. I encourage you to lead by example. I encourage you to encourage the businesses to refuse service to people who are not following basic humanity. But the ignorance and the overall disdain that has been displayed by many of the callers tonight is absolutely sad. I encourage you to move forward swiftly, encourage growth and understanding and acceptance. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's try DSWN one more time. Are you there? Okay, they're not able to communicate. All right.
I think they're muted on their end, maybe.
Possibly, okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, I've got someone identified here as V40 Thin Q. Would you please state your name and where you're from? And unmute first.
Kevin, can you go over again, please, how to unmute?
Yeah, if you're calling in from a phone, you can press *6. If you're on the Zoom app, you can mouse down to the lower left-hand corner of the app and unmute there. There's a microphone icon. And if it has the red X or the red line through it, then you are muted. Just click it one time to turn it on, provided you have a microphone on your computer or device. All right, I don't think that's going to work. Okay. All right, well, that is all we have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, well, I'd like to thank all the participants for their public input. Just would like to say first, there are really 5 cases, not 8. It was a mistake by the health department when they put it out, because I talked with David Lehman, emergency service coordinator, and he said that it was a mistake. So really we had 5 in Middlesex County at this time. Okay, I know we discussed the resolution, but I wanted to make the ordinance clear with everybody because the ordinance wasn't finished. It was just basically a template. And what we were throwing out with the ordinance, as for your penalty, would be a warning, and $25. No fine, misdemeanors, or anything like that. Also, that ordinance where we were going to clear it up was going to be, it was going to say any inside public places or stores. That's all it was. If you're inside, if you're out pumping gas, if you're out running, if you are out in the public doing anything outside, you use your social distance of your 6 feet. It was just to make sure that the spread would not be in the community when we have campgrounds opening up and things are going to be opening up. Also, as you know, May 1st, the campers are coming in. So basically, what some of the board members were looking at is that something with just a little bit of meat that's not going to hurt you, but also it was going to just let the people know that, hey, we meant business. I talked to the sheriff. The sheriff told me, he may have said that, he wasn't going to police this, but he did tell me that he would look at the ordinance, our final draft, take it to his attorney and see what he could work with. And basically I basically wanted something with some meat on it. They're telling you, hey, if you don't apply by these things or the rules, you need to have some common sense along with this. It was not forcing anybody. It was just trying to keep our community a little bit safer. But it was just giving you a little more definition instead of just like who was it? Pete Wright said. It's just an ordinance. Think about about a resolution. People a lot of times they're gonna do what they want to do, and even with a resolution, they're gonna not follow by it because everybody's not gonna do the same thing. Everybody don't think this is serious until you have a loved one to die from, and then you'll take it seriously. But this is why we were talking about the ordinance and resolution. The ordinance was not quite complete. We was going to get input from all the other board members because of the time that things were going on. So I'm just letting you know, with this ordinance that the first draft was not a complete draft. It was going to have some other things, just like I mentioned. Businesses that have maybe 2 or 3 people, it wouldn't pertain to you. We have a lot of law offices, and we have a lot of small business that don't have 10 people. And so, you know, it wouldn't pertain to you. We also have insurance companies. Some of them meet you outside. Banner Lumber Company make you go call in and you go in the backyard. So, you know, a lot of companies are doing, you know, the reasonable things that they're supposed to do. But now we're gonna go over to our grocery stores. You got people coming in here from everywhere. And all we wanted to try to make our community a little bit safer with a little bit of weight. That's all we're asking for. You know, and we're not forcing it, we're not taking anybody's rights. You have your rights to put a mask on, you have your right to cover up with a handkerchief. You have a right, if you have a t-shirt, to come in, as long as you're covering your mouth and your nose. That's all this was about on the ordinance. But somebody want a resolution that, you know, you want to be able to work with people. Yes, you want to be able to work with people, but people are people. Either way, we have a resolution. You're gonna still have people that not going to do what they're supposed to do. And I'm talking about people from outside the county. You got people from inside the county. They're not going to respect the other person. And this is what it's all about. We're in this all together. We want to respect each other. But if we have something with a little bit of weight on that respect, and that's what I was looking at on the ordinance side of this. Resolution, either way we go with this, you're gonna have issues because you're gonna have people that are not gonna follow the rules. Number one, they wanna do what they wanna do, and they're thinking about self instead of thinking about you and me. They're thinking about, you know, it's my right to not go in the store with a mask on. I mean, you know, and you know, it's about being respectful and looking out for each other. And that's what we're all about in the community. Because if everybody's gonna do everything right like it's supposed to, I'm all in favor for a resolution. But people are people. We're gonna have issues with either one. Either one we're gonna have issues with. I just wanted an issue that we could have just a little bit of weight, not harming you a whole lot, and people doing a lot of common sense. With this ordinance, if you have any type of disease or anything like that, and a breathing, it would let the people know that, you know, you don't have to wear the mask if it harms you in any way. Claustrophobia, you don't have to be on it. If you have little children, they don't have to have them on there. But, you know, if you were reasonable and you think about your child, you do what you need to do. And if the child feel that, you know, that they're scared and they don't want their face to be shown, that's up to the parents. It's a lot of common sense along with both of these. But, you know, we as a board got to make that decision. At this time, I'm opening it back up to the boards.
Mr. Chair, I would just remind you, we're coming up on 2 hours. It might be appropriate for us to go ahead and make the statement we need to make before we engage in debate.
Right, we got about 7 minutes.
And Mr. Chairman, we also have written comments that need to be read into the record.
Okay, I got this one right here. Do you have the other one?
I have the ones that you have, and I have about 5 others.
Okay, well, I don't have them. Well, I tell you what, you take care of those 5 and I'll take care of the ones I got, okay?
Okay.
All right. I got one from Victoria Simmons. I'm writing concerning the proposal ordinance requiring Middlesex County residents to wear face masks in all public places. As a homeowner in Middlesex County, may I just say, I am beyond outrageous over the ridiculous ordinance. Shame on the sheriff and his cohorts for coming up with this plan, which they didn't. This is simply trampling our constitutional right. There is no call for this kind of ordinance. We have the right to wear or not wear face masks. Perhaps our official needs to actually read the Constitution. It seems that our county would like to have more residents a bigger tax base, happier citizens. I guess this is over the top of government meddling, showing that isn't the case. Please pass my note to the supervisors. I would have a response sooner, but just be alert. This is illegal activity by a friend, respectful. Victoria R. Simmons. I got one from, this is my other one, Melissa Blake. Please submit my below public comment related to the proposed ordinance requiring mandatory use of a facial covering in public setting in Middlesex County. I would like to ask the Middlesex County Board of Supervisors to vote on the proposal ordinance requiring mandatory use of face covering in a public setting. Understand that the tremendous responsibility you face as a leader of our county to make the right decision in a very challenging time. I also understand your job is to represent the majority consensus of your constituents. Wearing a face mask covering is a voluntary public health measure listed by the CDC guidelines and control the spread of the coronavirus. Wearing a face mask covering is not even mentioned in the president guidelines to slow the spread of the virus. There has been no mandate at the state level of Virginia to wear a face covering in a public setting. Wearing a face covering is a voluntary personal choice. Reusing a cloth or disposable face mask without proper sanitation is pointless. In order for employees to require employees to wear face masks or OSHA required, that is complete respiratory protection program be implemented, which include, but is not limited to written work site specific procedure, training, fit testing, medical evaluation, inspection, cleaning, maintenance, storage related to masks in order for masks to be effective and safe OSHA. Developing the guidelines, employers must also provide mask required employment. How Middlesex County ensure that all resident tourists and residents surrounding county that visit and conduct business have access to masks and are trained on how to use them properly. A clean, maintain, and store them safely. If you cannot control these variables, the masks are ineffective. The ordinance is a fair response in a situation Middlesex County cannot control. The campgrounds are going to open. Middlesex County residents have been responsible in adhering to a president and CDC guidelines thus far. That is evidence in the fact that we have only four confirmed cases, letting continue us to use common sense and good judgment as we work together to live in a very challenging time. I respectfully ask that you vote on the proposal mandate required to wear face mask covering in public setting in Middlesex County. This is a personal decision that the local government should not be involved in. As an alternative, you may want to strongly encourage citizens to consider the use of a face covering in public setting. Encouraging rather than mandating is better choice in this situation. If a local business decides not to serve customers that choose not to wear face covering, the consumers can take their business elsewhere. This choice should remain at the personal level. The business and consumers make their own personal decision. Local government should not be involved. Submitted from Melissa Bray, 4501 Waterview Road, Waterview, Virginia. That's my two.
Okay. I have from Tracy Seitz at 243 Porpoise Cove Lane in Deltaville. Dear members of the Middlesex Board of Supervisors, I respectfully request an ordinance is not passed that requires the citizens and visitors of Middlesex County to wear masks in public for the next 60 days. While I appreciate the concern of the Board of Supervisors and their actions to protect our county residents and visitors, I do not believe it is the role of local government to create and enforce ordinances such as these. My formal education is not in epidemiology. However, I have followed the guidelines and recommendations issued by the Governor of Virginia, the President of the United States, and the Surgeon General. Neither of these state and federal officials have mandated everyone wear masks in public. In a television commercial just this morning, the Surgeon General stated those who are concerned at risk should maintain social distancing or stay at home. There was no mention of wearing a face mask. I listened to Dr. Williams with the VDH speak at last evening's meeting and completely respect all of his recommendations. I also know people who currently have COVID-19 and are self-quarantining. I understand that it can be spread without someone knowing they have it, and that for some people this could be deadly. I can assure you I do not take this disease lightly, and just like everyone else, it has affected my daily living habits. I pray for the health and safety of my family daily. I also believe it is not the responsibility of any of us to make decisions based on fear. I share this with you to also ask that you respectfully hear my request to not make this highly recommended practice an ordinance. Honestly, I'm more concerned about people not washing their hands and the germs that are spread that way. Again, I appreciate the role you play in our community and the many issues you are tasked with solving. Respectfully, Tracy Seitz, Doctor of Education. From Gordon Jones, resident of the Saluda District and president of Bay Design Group, Urbana, Virginia. The proposed ordinance, section 2.b, exempts the wearing of a mask while in a personal vehicle. Pursuant to Executive Orders 51 and 53, my business is an essential business and therefore is allowed to continue operations. Under normal operations, our field crews are often two-person crews. However, we have already limited our staff to 1 employee per vehicle, and all staff have been issued sanitized wipes and made aware of the need for social distancing, etc. His question, I would recommend this item be amended to allow an exception to the wearing of masks, quote, when driving/riding in a personal and adding or company vehicle. Number 2, the proposed ordinance makes no mention of outside spaces. Is being outside considered public? When walking with my wife on my private road, is it the intent of this ordinance to require that we both wear masks? Even if we were walking on a public road, are we to wear masks at all times? My field crews are very isolated from public comment and do not wear masks under normal working conditions. However, again, they have access to proper sanitation measures and masks should they need them and have to go into public areas or are going to come in close contact with others. If this ordinance is to be adopted, I believe consideration should be given to my comments above and clarification be made for what is truly public. It does not seem reasonable to require the wearing of masks when outside while observing correct social distancing. Thank you for your time and consideration. From Hallie Holmes, Saluda, Virginia. Good morning. She quotes, if I wasn't living through this, I wouldn't believe it, end quote. When I saw in the news that a vice president that didn't have a mask on inside a health institution, it just shook me to the core. My thoughts are this. Number 1, I wear a mask when I go in public. 2, I practice social distancing. 3, I wash my hands. 4, I limit my trips out to once a week to take trash, go to the grocery store, or to pick up my prescriptions. 5, I practice stay at home. I value my life even if you don't. You can kill yourself, but don't kill me with this virus. I have 2 great grandchildren that I love to hug up on or just sit and watch them play. So now since COVID-19, I am satisfied with just waving at them and see the smiles. I believe that there will be better days ahead, but it requires us doing the right thing. I even wear gloves when I pump gas. What I have observed is that people will look at you like you have lost your mind when I wear my mask. I am forever grateful that I have worked as a home health aide, worked in a nursing home and in the intensive care, and then 25 years in corrections until 2010. Those jobs afforded me the opportunity to understand and use PPE in each of those settings. There were a few occasions that I pulled my uniforms off right at my washing machine because I didn't want to bring anything in my home. Even when working in corrections, you even wore gloves to check inmates, mail, etc. I will do my darndest to protect myself and my fellow man. So therefore, I expect the same in return. I thought that good common sense would prevail, but apparently it hasn't happened. I understood everything that Dr. Williams spoke about on Wednesday, April 29th. I checked the BDH/Three Rivers Health District website at least once a day. You could be a carrier and not even know it. My question is simply this: how will this ordinance be enforced fairly and equally to all? People are already struggling. Thank you. From Linda Leisure.
Miss Betty, I'm sorry, this is Heather. I'm going to interrupt, please. We need to do a quorum check. We are beyond our 2-hour mark, please, before we read any more.
Okay. Mr. Coons?
Here.
Mr. Mansfield?
Unmute me, Pete.
Go ahead, Pete.
Yes, here.
Mr. Williams?
Yeah.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Here.
Mr. Jesse?
Here.
Okay. All 5 board members are present.
Thank you.
From Linda Leisure. The meeting about masks is ridiculous. Governor Northam says mandatory. You should be discussing fines for non-compliance. You'll make plenty of money since most of the county is not complying. And then from Bill Rosenbaum. This is the last one, but it's a long one.
Okay.
My name is William Rosenbaum, and I live at 993 Whiting Creek Road in Locust Hill. I live within the Harmony Village District. I am writing this to express my concerns with the proposed approach for mandating, under penalty of law, the wearing of face coverings as personal protective equipment, as described in the proposed ordinance. I trust that you and the rest of the Board of Supervisors do not seek to impose additional requirements and constraints on the citizens of Middlesex County unless they are critically important and actually will accomplish an intended benefit. I'm sure you do not take the proposed requirement lightly. I have a number of significant questions about the efficacy of the proposed measures, the proposed ordinance itself, the burden it will place on the Sheriff's Department, and the fundamental basis for trying to stretch out the life of the pandemic and accomplish the curve flattening that is sought. I also have significant concerns and questions about the role of the county in imposing these types of requirements as opposed to state authorities, and would like to offer an alternative approach that may be less coercive. Naturally, we have all been following the pandemic closely, and we all hear very frightening anecdotes about the potential effects of the COVID virus. I listened to Dr. Williams' presentation, and everything he said about the nature of the disease was consistent with what I have heard from other sources. Not wanting to live in fear or trust the numbskulls on the television shows, I've been tracking and graphing the progression of the disease for the total U.S. and for a sampling of states, including Virginia. This tabulation includes the number of cases identified and the number of deaths attributed to COVID. My objective was to understand how bad the pandemic is and how it is progressing. What is apparent from this tabulation is the following. The rate of growth of both identified cases and deaths is dropping pretty much across the board. As of the end of April, the number of deaths attributed to the coronavirus in Virginia is about 10% lower than the number of deaths in an equivalent time frame due to the recently ended influenza in Virginia. In other words, the lethality of the virus appears to be similar to the influenza. Data from large testing programs in California and elsewhere tend to indicate that the coronavirus has infected far more people than the number of identified cases data indicates. What was more surprising to me was that the New York City area, including suburban areas of New Jersey, accounts for fully half of the total number of deaths in the U.S. As of this morning, it was 27,778 deaths in the New York City area out of the national total of 58,355. As Dr. Williams indicated, Middlesex County has 4 identified cases, but there are probably a lot more that are unrecognized. The bottom line is that COVID virus is a bad infection and behaves differently from normal influenza viruses. It appears to spread rapidly, but it also appears that the mortality rate is roughly the same as the normal annual flu. With that in mind, what Are we to shut down the county for the annual flu and implement all the various edicts laid on us by local and state governments every year from November through March? Do we keep piling on requirements and restrictions because they make us feel good regardless of whether they are proven to be beneficial or not? It is true that the county needs to get back to work. We have accomplished the curve flattening, which was the original goal of the lockdowns. The coronavirus will always be out there like the influenza that occurs annually from November to March. As Dr. Williams indicated, the only way to prevent infection or reinfection is through a vaccine or through acquired immunity from exposure to the virus. A vaccine is potentially years away if it is even possible. It is not possible to prevent the entire population or even large portions of it from contacting the virus over time. Resorting to extreme and onerous measures is likely to be a waste of time and could actually delay the development of herd immunity that occurs when a majority of the population has developed antibodies from exposure to the virus. PPE is useful in lab situations and contaminated or hazardous work conditions, but isn't suitable for long-term extended use. The quality and design of PPE is critical. To protect individuals, the pathways of contamination must be identified and measures implemented to prevent contact with the contaminant. In the case of the COVID virus, the pathways include contact with aerosols, like those from someone sneezing, and skin contact with live viruses from contaminated surfaces, and then touching the face and transferring the virus to mucous membranes. Effective PPE for the virus would require some type of face mask capable of capturing micron-sized particles in latex or other membrane-type gloves. With no minimum standards, homemade face coverings would likely be next to useless in preventing movement of fine droplets. Face coverings that are homemade, reusable, poorly designed, and made up of inferior materials can actually do more harm than good by becoming a medium for reinfection or transfer of contamination. Most people will reuse their face covering, place it in their pocket when not in use, and in the process thoroughly contaminate the face covering. Each time they use it, they will be breathing through a contaminated filter that contains all the virus particles captured from their previous use. If they do sneeze, they will be blowing out the accumulated material and particles that have accumulated on the covering through which they are breathing. This is unsanitary and will likely result in further infection and illness. From my experience in training in health and safety for hazardous waste operations, PPE is always single use and is disposed after one use, unless it is level A suits, breathing apparatus, etc., that undergoes intensive decontamination after each use. The proposed ordinance does not require single-use PPE. Initially, CDC guidance issued guidance that recommended not wearing face coverings. They subsequently changed their recommendation. Their current position is that they recommend face coverings in situations where social distancing is not possible but do not mandate them. Their objective for the use of face coverings is not to protect the wearer, but to protect people that the wearer may come in contact with. I have not found anyone that recommends face coverings in all public settings. I read the ordinance and noted that it requires face coverings where residents are in public settings. That would mean that a resident would be obligated to wear a face covering as soon as they step out of their door. That requirement makes no sense when a person is alone in a remote location, in their car alone, sitting at a red light, or thousands of other circumstances. It is an unreasonable imposition on the residents of the county and is not consistent with the CDC guidelines for the use of face coverings. The burden the ordinance will place on the Sheriff's Department will be significant and will likely distract them from other important duties. Middlesex County has 4 recognized cases. It already has one of the lowest identified infection rates on a county basis in the state and perhaps the nation. Residents have done a good job with social distancing and staying in place and are losing patience with moving targets projected by the CDC, enduring work shutdowns and other seemingly senseless requirements placed on them primarily by state governments. If face coverings are that critical to the prevention of the spread of the virus, the requirement should be directed by the state and not local governments, and especially ones that are not hot zones. Are there any other counties in Virginia that have implemented similar face covering mandates? Governor Northam has specifically said that he will not mandate the use of face coverings, and I have not found any other counties that are requiring them, even those like Fairfax County that are experiencing the highest rates of infection in the state. It is apparent that the highest rates of infection occur in areas that are densely populated, confined residents like rehab centers, prisons, etc., and areas that continue to operate mass transit. Middlesex County has a dispersed population and no facilities other than the grocery store that involve people in relatively close proximity, and even that is minimal. There is nothing unique about Middlesex County that makes the wearing of face coverings more necessary than, say, Fairfax County. I suspect that adoption of the proposed ordinance, especially as written with the broad public setting requirement and the onerous fines, would be viewed unfavorable by a large number of the citizens of Middlesex. I personally believe it is an overreach at the local level, and especially as written, it is an insult to the local population. I believe you could achieve equal or better participation by conducting a strong public relations program and appealing to the citizenship of the local residents. What many in government fail to recognize is that the citizens they serve are intelligent adults that, if provided good leadership, will do the right and appropriate thing. Bill Rosenbaum.
Is that the last one?
That's all.
All right. Okay, well, thank you for all that. At this time, the board would like to make a decision. What'd you say, Pete?
Yes, I would like to move that we accept the resolution as written, but I would like to change number 2 under the resolution.
Matt, can you put it up on the screen, please?
Can everyone see the resolution?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good.
I would like to change number 2, actually add to number 2 if you can. My change would say, and I'm reading from my handwritten notes, so it won't be the greatest. This resolution suggests that businesses in Middlesex post on their entrance door or other prominent places the requirements for entering their business, which can include the requirement of some face covering for entry or service.
Pete, can you restate that? Because I'm just now seeing it on the screen.
Sure.
Yes, please, Pete. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to try and read it better than I did this last time. This resolution suggests that businesses in Middlesex post on their entrance door or other prominent places the requirements for entering their business, which can include the requirement of some face covering for entry or service.
Okay, so Pete, are you asking to rewrite number 2 to read exactly as you just read it, or are you asking that we add language to number 2 that give businesses the option? I'm a little confused.
Well, when you say suggest that, does give them the option. They don't have to write it, but I'm trying to encourage that as much as possible.
Okay. And what's the will of the board?
Well, you've got a motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we have a motion for the change. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
You have a second?
My question in the discussion, Mr. Chair, what are you trying to accomplish with this change to number 2, Peter?
I'm trying to encourage the businesses to say, you know, if you don't have some face covering, first of all, if they wish, on their door, if they don't have some kind of face covering, they're not going to be served, or they're going to be denied entry into the business. And that it's perfectly okay to post that sign on their entrance.
And in its current language, it doesn't do that for you?
It didn't. I appreciate what was written in number 2, and you know, if you prefer to use that language, it's fine with me. But I would prefer that it have a little more force to it.
Well, I want to find out where you come from. What is the will of the board? Do we want to change number 2 or not? That's the thing about it, of this resolution.
For my part, I can't see what it was versus what we're suggesting. And that's difficult. If maybe we could restore what it was and then type a second one underneath with Pete's suggestion verbatim, and then we could compare them side by side.
Matt can do that.
I will do my best.
All right, you work on that.
Pete, can you read it again? Your suggestion?
I will read it slowly so Matt can type it as I read, okay?
Thank you.
This resolution suggests that businesses in Middlesex post on their entrance door or other prominent places the requirement for entering their business, which can include the requirement of some face covering for entrance or service.
Way beyond my ability to type that fast, Pete. I'm sorry. Maybe you can just email me what you would like and I can cut and paste it. Because, yeah, this is going to take a while doing it this way.
Right. All right, okay, well, Pete, your motion on the floor was to pass this resolution with that proper change?
Yes, however, if it really causes a big problem, let's leave it like it is.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, there's a motion with a proper second before you.
Right. So he would have to amend his motion again and then redo it then, right?
You can amend the motion, you can rescind the motion, or you can.
Rescind that motion and leave it like it is, Pete.
Okay, I would like to rescind my motion and make a motion that we accept it just exactly like it's written.
All right.
I second.
We have a motion and it also been properly seconded by John Kuntz. At this time, do we have any more discussion? I think Reggie's trying to get on. Okay, Reggie, you're on.
Okay. We discussed tonight about the resolution in the audience. So now I'm a little puzzled. As being a supervisor, I'm a little puzzled. We haven't rewritten the ordinance to do a comparison of the two. It seemed like some people that call in is telling us one way or the other way. I don't know if we took account of that yet. As supervisors, we saying, well, we're going to do something if it's not anything. And that's the kind of impression I'm getting from it right now. We haven't went over it, and it's new to me, and it's crazy because we want to make a motion, one of us want to second it, and nobody want to say, look, let's look at the other one to work out as supervisors to give the county exactly what will be best for the citizens of the county. And personally, Brother Chair, I just ain't used to doing business like that. Thank you.
Okay. Well, basically, I guess we're going through parliamentary procedures, and when people put things on a motion. But I would just like to say, I feel that the ordinance that was put out had to be worked on, and a lot of people based on what they saw the first time with the ordinance. And right now, I'm gonna just tell you straight up, I'm looking out for the health, welfare, and safety of the citizens of Middlesex County, and I want something with a little more meat. That's just me. That would force people to just encourage, but kind of give them a little push with it, because a lot of times people are not going to do what the citizens not going to do what you want them to do most of the time, because they don't want you to tell them to do things that are going to be right and protect people. So right now, there's been a motion on the floor. Motion has been seconded. Now we're discussing, and that's how I feel with this. But at this time, I would like to have a roll call. If it's no
Mr.
more
Chair.
discussion, is there any more discussion?
Yeah, I have one comment. I understand Reggie's position, and we don't know how the vote's going to go. But I think part of what I heard in the public comment that is germane here is that we have educated some people, or some of the public with their comments have educated all of us on the difference between a resolution and an ordinance. And we've heard opinions that range from absolutely we want an ordinance to absolutely we don't want an ordinance to we don't want a resolution, we do want a resolution. But what resonated with me is by passing a resolution, we're not saying we can't come back and pass an ordinance. And we know that we can call an emergency meeting fairly quickly and still get a decent turnout from the community. And I can attest, as can all four of you, that we've been talking to a lot of our folks in the community, just as we did back in November with the Second Amendment sanctuary. So I think we've had a healthy dialogue this evening. I guess it's not technically a dialogue, but we've gotten good feedback this week. I think we've encouraged it. And I think we at least need to see where we stand on this resolution. But if we were to pass it this evening, it does not mean that we can't come back and consider the ordinance. If anything, what it suggests is, hey, let's trust the minds in our community that are saying an ordinance is inappropriate. And we're gonna all do this adequately to respond to the pandemic, which is not a so-called pandemic, it is a pandemic. And I'll add that the Sweden example that I heard about, you do not have to spend much time finding data on how the Sweden experiment is going. It is not going well. Neighboring countries are 6 times the death rate per capita. So there's no hijinks there in the statistics, and you can check multiple sources. But my point is, we can if we decide, if 3, 4, or 5 of us vote for this resolution, we can be sending a signal to the community that we've listened to all sides. We're not going to please everyone, but this is hopefully a first and last step for us to say that we do care about our health. We are listening to VDH, Dr. Williams, the governor, the Surgeon General, the president. We're hearing all that guidance, but with a lack of testing out here, with 5 confirmed cases that are no way showing us what our true state of infection is, because you can be asymptomatic. We don't have adequate testing. We don't know the extent of our problem. So all we can do is stay at home as much as we can, be socially distant, and try to wear those masks as much as you possibly can. And so the resolution, in my opinion, is appropriate right now, but it does not take off the table an ordinance down the road if people aren't proving to be listening to the guidance. So that would be my response, respectfully.
And well, my personal opinion is I think we still should work on this ordinance. This is a serious situation that we're in. We have campers that's coming in here on May 1st. We're going to have other campers coming in from Bush Park on maybe May 8th. And this is going to be a very big impact to our community. And I think we need to definitely work on an ordinance and look at it and make it reasonable and not so demanding or finding. It's just making so that we have a little bit of weight, and that's all I'm asking for. But
I'm happy to continue working on the
we
ordinance with you.
but also I said that's what I'm asking for. I would like us to continue work on this ordinance in case people don't abide by the resolution. People, our numbers are being increased in the next couple of weeks or whatever. This would be one of our main priorities, is to work on this ordinance. And in case things go worse, until we find out, we're gonna have to wait a couple of more weeks or a week or so and see how things go in our community. But meantime, I think we really need to work on this ordinance, because everybody's not gonna play by the rules. And it's just like Brother Williams said, you may have a rule saying you're going 55 miles an hour, but if you go 75 miles an hour, you're gonna get a ticket. And instead of a pat on the hand and say, I hope you do this. All right, so now we had the motion, been properly second. We had any more discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
No.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
No.
The motion passes 3-2.
All right, so motion passed. Okay, that ends up on that meeting. I would like for us to just have a 5-minute break, because we've been here 2 hours and something sitting here.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Are you suggesting that we table discussion of the ordinance and continue to work on it offline? Should we need to come back to the ordinance and take a 5-minute break so that we can then jump into the budget session?
Well, it's the will of the board at this time. What I want to do, I thought that once, yeah, we can discuss the ordinance, because we need to get a right decision how we want to do this. But I had already put some inputs on this ordinance, and because I talked about the ordinance earlier, nobody else put in, but Reggie and I, nobody else wanted to participate in, because we talked about the ordinance, but nobody participated. And it was just us two talking about the ordinance. Nobody else wanted to put their input in the ordinance. Just like when I said earlier, with the fines, warning, $25. No, as you say, no misdemeanors, no $2,500 fine, no, and all the incidents that's on it. Anybody can go outside. It was just inside of buildings and inside of stores. And also, if you're pumping gas, you don't need it because you're outside. It was just inside. This ordinance was designed for inside the stores and public buildings. That's all it was. And then none of the fines, but $25 on your third violation on something that can be very simply resolved when you're doing this. That's all this was about. And anything that any other board members could put in this ordinance. That's all that was. And just make it simplified a little bit, and don't make it so stringent, but have some meat on it that has a little bit of weight. Because even the sheriff told me, y'all write up the ordinance, I'll look at it, and I'll give it to my attorney and see what he has to say to see what I can implement. And he told me that. So, I think we need to work on this ordinance in case the resolution don't work out as well as we expect it to. I hope it does. But in case we don't, we need a backup plan, because everybody's not going to abide by the rules. And we're going to have other people from Maryland, Henrico, all over coming into Middlesex County. And if you think that they're going to come here and not go to our stores and buy things, you're not looking at the right situation on this. Plus Bush Park's coming in, and we got it's a holiday. It's going to be a holiday May 25th. People want to come here, so we got to make the people that live here a little bit safer, and we all work together, because this is a serious situation that we're in. I said my piece.
A couple of questions. I'm unclear how we transition to the public hearing on the budget.
Because this was the night that we're supposed to work on the budget, isn't it?
Yeah, and if I may, Mr. Chairman, I do have a recommendation. We are 34 minutes late on opening the public hearing on the budget. What I would recommend is maybe we can incorporate some of the changes that were mentioned to the ordinance tonight. I've taken notes of that. revise and update the ordinance and maybe put it back in front of the board during their regular board meeting next Tuesday. That will give us some opportunity to implement some of the measures that y'all adopted in the resolution, the voluntary measures, but also give us some time to update the ordinance and get it into a more presentable draft for the board. Y'all could consider it then, not for adoption per se, but consider it, you know, in some final form to give to the sheriff, to give to his attorney after Tuesday's meeting. I am a little concerned we have to exit this meeting in order to start that other meeting where we have the public hearing on the budget advertised.
Right, well, that's the route we really need to go to.
You would need to make a motion to adjourn this meeting then.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I am always glad to make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion by John. Do we have a second?
I would like to second.
We have a second by Pete. Motion and probably resign. No discussion. All in favor of that motion? Roll call.
Roll call. Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Put your mic back on. Put your mic back on, Reg.
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye. Meeting adjourned.
So 5 minutes and then we call back.
Yeah,
into
let's
the
have a
other meeting?
5-minute break and then we'll reconvene and open up meeting for about the budget, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.